You're listening to The Dangerous Mind of Mark Yoshimoto Nemkov. No excuses, no BS, no pants.
Oh boy, if you heard the previous episode on this channel, the one titled, Get Ready to Die Inside, AI from NotebookLM, created this podcast episode from 2 web links. If you heard that, you may be thinking, the AI V-apocalypse is here. Let me try my best to talk you down off the ledge. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Microphone Playboy podcast. How you doing? And the answer to how you doing today might be not so good, especially if you just heard the episode that included the AI-generated voices from NotebookLM, a new experimental Google product. And if you haven't, let me just give you a taste of what NotebookLM is capable of creating from just some text prompts or some web links. Get ready. It's time to know thy enemy.
Okay, so for our last source, we found this blog post that really dives into the technical details of what makes a premium cable different.
Okay.
But then it goes on to say that in most studio setups, you probably wouldn't even hear the difference.
Right. It's kind of like those blind taste tests with wine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, can you really tell the difference between a $20 bottle and a $200 bottle?
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you can't.
So what are they saying makes these premium cables so special if you can't even hear the difference?
Well, they talk about a few things, but one of the big ones is shielding.
Shielding.
Yeah, so basically premium cables often use better shielding to reduce electromagnetic interference.
Okay, so like that annoying hum you sometimes get.
Exactly. It's like wrapping your audio signal in a protective bubble.
I like that analogy.
Okay, so how crazy is that? Hacking Hi-Fi 4247, who deserves an associate producer credit this week on AI Awareness Week for prompting these discussions with his timely questions. He says, Mark, how discouraging is this to you? I'm sure with an established brand and a customer base, you'll be okay. I don't know about that. But for someone starting out, it's starting to feel deflating. If you were starting today, would it still make sense to pursue voiceover? Wow. All right. And the DRBC, he commented. He said, from the perspective of someone just really starting in the industry, actually starting to get somewhere, this is a very difficult new obstacle to understand. Navigating this ever-changing and extremely competitive industry was hard before the introduction of synthetic voices and AI-driven audio and voice production. Any tips from a veteran looking at this shifting landscape for someone trying to forge their own path? We definitely need to talk about this. But before I tackle these questions, we need to talk a little bit about the enemy, about what you just heard, about that podcast episode you just heard. All right, if that doesn't give you pause, then you should stop sniffing glue. Because honestly, that makes my blood run cold. Because it legitimately sounds like 2 humans having a podcast conversation. The pauses, the inflections, that was all AI generated without any extra prompts or anything. And let's just hand it to that guy's voice. That guy's voice is amazing. It's very listenable. And it's authoritative. You know, he sounds like an expert. But it's very friendly at the same time. And they picked a great co-host companion voice because her voice sounds, I hate to say generic, but it sounds relatable. Oh, before I forget, I'm on the Soyuz 017 FET today going through the CAPI VP26, but I digress. But back to the NotebookLM thing, because I didn't even create the script for this podcast. That was generated also by an AI, and it was generated all from me entering 2 web links into the NotebookLM interface. That's all I did. Was I Googled are expensive XLR cables better? That's all I Googled. And I took 2 of the top search results and I pasted them into the NotebookLM interface, which is free to use from Google. You don't have to pay a fee for it. And I just pasted them in. And then I let it process it. Because NotebookLM is not a podcast generator per se. It's really a research assistant. So it aggregates important information, or what it identifies as important information, as the most salient points in whatever sources you upload to it. So, it's really meant to be the kind of thing where if you were researching for school or work or whatever, and you can take your various sources, whether they are in text, you can cut and paste text, you can upload PDFs, or you can just upload web links. And it will aggregate this data and try to find the most salient points and give you an overview of it. It'll teach it to you like this in a podcast format, in an informational podcast format. Now, let me stress that word, informational. And we'll come back to that in a second. So somehow they created this algorithm that will spit out this conversation between two, quote, AI podcast hosts. And it's legitimate. I truly, truly believe that 95% of people out there, if you played this for them, they would never clock it as an AI. There are some tiny little glitches that happen here and there in the audio. But this is like not even a beta. I think it's an alpha. It's an Google experimental project. So there's a lot of ceiling left yet in this technology. And I'm sure that at some point they will add more voices. They will also most definitely, they will add the capability to render these podcast episodes in multiple languages. Right now, I think you can only do English. But what we're looking at here, what we're listening to here, is a complete destruction of the myth that AI voices are further away from convincing regular consumer-level humans, not us superhumans who have ears tuned to this kind of thing. Not us, but everyone else. The people in your family, the people you work with, the people who aren't really sitting in front of a microphone or listening crucially to audio. They're just listening for content. And quite honestly, let's really admit the fact that even despite the little glitches in there that betray that these are not real human beings, that this is an AI, I don't think people will care. And that is ultimately what it comes down to. What people will accept. Human voices may still be better, but it's what people will accept. So, remember beta and VHS, beta versus VHS. Now you sound really old. And beta was the superior format, but VHS won. Remember MP3s versus CDs. CDs, definitely superior. MP3s won. Streaming does not look as good on TV as a DVD even, let alone like a higher quality, a higher res digital format. But streaming wins because it's not about quality. It's not about a higher resolution. It's about accessibility. I'm sorry. I don't mean to stress every syllable like that because I feel like it means accessibility. I don't mean to do that. I think that but it's true. I'm feeling like this really needs to be talked about. We can't keep our heads stuck in the sand forever. We have to know what we're up against. So what does it mean? What does it mean? First, though, can I just say that listening to it in my headphones, the Soyuz 017 FET going into the Cappy VP26, I don't think I tried this combo before. I really like it. But anyway, back on target. So what does this mean? All right, first, let's look at the DRBC's question, because he's asking any tips. Any tips looking at this shifting landscape for someone trying to forge their own path? I do have some tips for you. And that is, you need to be at the top of your game. Do you hear my voice just go, ah? You need to be at the top of your game. You need to be better than the competition, because breaking down what we just heard from the AI podcast episode, that read was informational. Both of those characters, what they were giving us was informational. And it was casual informational, or informational casual. Hawaiian shirt informational. They were talking to us like a couple of NPR hosts, like a couple of podcast hosts. People who have research in front of them, right? They weren't talking like they were experts, because they weren't coming to us with, they weren't speaking of their own experiences. They were just recapping other people's experiences, just encapsulating them, in kind of in a way that felt really just friendly and open. But it wasn't a discussion. It wasn't a two-way conversation. It was them talking at you. They were talking at you. And as informational discussions go, I think they nailed that essence. But again, there was no emotional content here. There was nothing there to pull or tug on your heartstrings. Maybe get your blood pressure pumping. Maybe that's what it did to me. It increased my blood pressure. But there was nothing there that made me feel anything. There was no moment there where I felt like joy or sadness or anything other than just kind of like the way you feel when you're listening to information, but presented in a way that doesn't feel like you're being spoken down to or taught. And not even like in a TED Talk way, because I think there's something about the TED Talk. I love the idea of the TED Talk. But you got this guy up on stage with a little headset microphone, and he's pacing back and forth, and he's telling you about some expert level thing that is way beyond your capability, and you're just hoping that you can get like 10% out of whatever they're saying to help you do whatever you do. A TED Talk is really just kind of like, it's very, how do I say it? It's very, it's masturbatory in a way. It's showing off. And there's nothing, but don't get me wrong. I'm not criticizing TED Talks, but the way they're presented. It's like, here's a big show, here's a big stage, and here's the big expert talking at you. It's not a conversation. It's someone really who knows what they're doing. It's Johnny Ive talking about designing the iPhone. It's Martin Scorsese talking about directing. It's like masterclass, right? But that's a whole different ball game than what a lot of us are doing in voiceover. Now, granted, there is a lot of informational voiceover work that is currently done by humans. But overall, what this was missing, right? Again, these are just like, it's like radio hosts. So my advice to, the DRBC or to anyone out there who's thinking to themselves, what does this mean? Is this going to completely blow up what I'm trying to do? This goes back to what I said 2 episodes ago about really you got to dig into the human element of your voiceover. You have to have not just a unique vocal brand in order to survive. You have to have the ability to emote. You have to have the ability to bring the humanness out in the script. You bring with you the experience of life. You bring with you the ability to put all of the elements of a script into context of the human experience. And while we're marveling at this brand new technology, and when I say brand new, I think this AI voiceover portion of NotebookLM just happened. While we marvel at it, I think what we're going to see is a lot of use of it. We're going to begin to hear it in abundance, and it's going to start to all sound the same. And even though you do have all of these really deceptive, like the way they start and stop, and just a lot of vocal characteristics that mirror the way humans talk. Again, what you're not hearing, you're hearing a little bit of a grin. You're hearing a little bit of like, I know this and I'm presenting this. But you're not hearing the heart and soul of it yet. Let's just say yet. So my advice would be, you really need to understand how to bring the emotional aspect out in your voiceover. And a lot of that has to do with you knowing yourself. We're going to have to talk about this at a later date. I have an exercise that I think some of you might want to try. And though I'm not a coach, I'm going to put out in a future episode. I have an exercise that I think will help you understand how close you are to being able to tap into your emotional core and how willing you are to do that. Because a lot of it, I mean, let's face it, a lot of it requires vulnerability. An AI does not have vulnerability built into its processing. It doesn't have that human sense of vulnerability. Now, going to Hacking Hi-Fi 4247's comment. So I'm going to be straight up with you. I completely understand why it may feel deflating if you're starting out today. It may feel like you're getting in the game too late. And that may entirely be the case. When I started in voiceover a long time ago, when I got into this as a full-time career, I never, this goes back a while before I even ever heard of AI voices. So I thought this would be something I would be doing, even part-time in retirement. As an old geezer, not that I'm not an old geezer already, but I mean, I'm talking about like into my golden years. They were going to have to pry me away from my booth. My plan was to voice until basically they had to put me on a machine. And now I plan to voice until they replace me with a machine. So if I knew then what I know now, would I have gotten into voiceover? I don't know. I don't think so. I honestly don't think so. But my situation is different because my life led me to voiceover. So I probably would have done it anyway. It was just something it was a path that opened up based on things that I had done. So my life experience brought me to here. And I'm not going to question why. I'm just going to keep fighting. I'm just going to keep fighting for it. I want to be the last man standing, and I want all of you to be by my side. I am not giving up because I know that if we continue, we can't ignore the enemy. We can't ignore the enemy. We can only take the information that we were given, and we can use it to try to win. Again, the obstacles in your life do not prevent you from living your life. The obstacles in your life are your life. Maybe I should have been a real estate agent or, opened a mobile pet circumcision business. But I'm here right now. So what I want to do is I want to stress that if you're new to the business, if you're just getting in, you need to take voiceover extremely seriously. You need to understand how good you're going to have to be in order to compete. And even with my brand and my customer base, my career is not going to be immune to any of this at all. It's going to be affected, very much so. But what I truly believe is that having superior product, having a better sound, having a great sound, having that emotional content, having the right product for the right client, and just getting better and better and focusing on getting better and better and better at this. Lately, over the past few months, I've had to give up, certain things that I was doing. I gave up Discord, going on Discord. I gave up going on groupdiy.com because I was spending time there that I knew I needed to spend on my work, on my business. I knew that if I could do at least 3-4 more auditions a day, it would pay off, and it has. The extra added focus on my work is paying benefits. So you need to take it seriously, all right? If you're just kind of like half-assing it, and you're like, it's kind of like maybe something I'll do on the side, a little side hustle. Guess what? You're trying to side hustle in a world where full of people like myself who are full-time like hustling this thing. Not side hustling it, but full hustling it. If you plan to just be a tourist in the voiceover industry, you know what? You get what you get and don't get upset. But it's going to take, you need to focus. You need to focus on your product. You need to focus on your delivery. You need to focus on your sound. And all of these things need to be on point more than ever. More than ever. All right, I actually have to get back to work. So, what do you think? What do you think? I'm still processing this. There will be a lot more discussion about this. We are not done talking about AI. So, you know what to do. Leave a comment. All right, until next time, this is the human Mark Yoshimoto Nemkov, fading to black.